A little girl is kidnapped by a ruthless organ trafficking gang. The police can't find her. The criminals think they're untouchable. But there's one problem. The man they're messing with isn't an ordinary pawnshop owner. He's a former Black Ops assassin so dangerous that even hardened criminals and police officers fear his name. After they murder the girl's mother and threaten to sell the child's eyes on the black market, he launches a one-man war against an entire criminal empire. And by the time they realize who they've kidnapped, it's already too late. But before we see how one quiet pawnshop owner turns into every criminal's worst nightmare, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you never miss another action-packed movie recap. Now, let's see why this gang made the biggest mistake of their lives. The film opens with a group of detectives staking out a nightclub, having received intel about a drug deal set to go down that night. When the suspect, Bear, arrives, they slip inside and blend into the crowd. Inside, a dancer named Hyo-jong performs on stage while the audience watches. Bear enters, sits down, and discreetly passes a bag to someone. After her set, she retreats to the locker room and hides in a closet. When the courier enters with the bag, she sneaks up behind him and stuns him with a taser. She searches the bag, finds the stash, and takes it. Back in the club, the detectives intercept Bear as he tries to leave, triggering a fight. Despite his size, the chief detective, Kim Chi-gon, manages to knock him down. The officers search the bag but didn't find any drugs. Bear is arrested but later released for lack of evidence. The scene shifts to a man named Cha Tae-sik, buying sausage and a bouquet of flowers. He lives in a run-down apartment building, the same building as Hyo-jong, where he runs a small pawn shop out of his unit. Tae-sik leads an isolated life. No small talk, no pleasantries, not even a smile. Returning home, he runs into Somi, Hyo-jong's young daughter, the only person unbothered by his cold demeanor. She follows him, chattering freely, telling him she didn't steal his milk, that she stopped stealing altogether, recounting her day at school and peppering him with questions he never answers. When Tae-sik reaches his door, he steps inside and closes it behind him. Undeterred, Somi moves to his shop window and pawns her MP3 player. She spots a sausage on his counter and lights up. He then invites her in to share a meal. Tae-sik asks what she needs money for. She explains she does nail art and is saving up for supplies. Then, unprompted, she tells him what people in the neighborhood say about him, that he's a criminal in hiding, and her mother thinks he's a child predator. She asks if it's true. Tae-sik asks what she thinks. She says bluntly that he looks like the prison type, then laughs it off. The moment is interrupted as Hyo-jong's voice rings out from outside. Somi dives under the table. When Tae-sik opens the door, Hyo-jong demands to know if Somi is inside. He says no. She tells him to open the door fully. Thinking quickly, he nudges Somi's bowl off the table with his foot and she catches it. He swings the door wide open. Satisfied, Hyo-jong moves on to business. She pawns a stolen camera to Tae-sik. Before leaving, Hyo-jong warns Tae-sik to keep his hands off her daughter and stay away from her, threatening to kill him if he doesn't. Then, in the same breath, flirts with him and suggests he ask her out if he wants. Tae-sik doesn't respond. When he returns, he finds Somi holding the bouquet he bought, tucking a flower into her hair. He snatches it from her and tells her sharply to stop touching things that aren't hers. Elsewhere, Chinese drug trafficker Oh Myung-gyu confronts his subordinate Man Seok for failing to guard the stolen stash. Man Seok assures him he knows who took it and will get it back. Myung-gyu gives him 3 days. That night, the drug courier breaks into Hyo-jong's home and demands she return the drugs. She refuses. He beats her mercilessly while Somi watches in terror. When it's clear she won't break, he leaves, reminding her how dangerous the people she's crossed are. Afterwards, Somi moves toward her mother, but Hyo-jong tells her to go outside and play. Alone, she shoots up and screams in ecstasy. Unable to bear it, Somi goes to Tae-sik's house and asks to spend the night. She talks as usual while he prepares a bed for her and tells her to rest. The next morning, Somi is gone, leaving behind a note and a small nail art design painted on one of his fingernails. Later, Tae-sik boards a bus holding the flowers and listens to music through Somi's MP3 player. He arrives at a cemetery. It turns out he's there for his late wife's memorial. Returning home, he spots Somi being confronted by a woman whose son's school bag she allegedly stole. A police officer questions her about it. Somi insists she only borrowed it to compare it with her own. The boy strikes her with the bag and taunts her for not even owning one. When the officer asks about her parents, Somi spots Tae-sik and points to him, telling the officers he's her father. They start toward him, and he turns and walks away. Later, he finds her in a grocery store and asks if she is angry with him. She ignores him. Tae-sik tells her that is why she should not steal in the first place. She gives him a cold, unimpressed stare, grabs a packet of chips, and walks out. He offers to pay for it, but the shopkeeper waves it off. The shopkeeper explains Somi steals for attention and tells Tae-sik to be more present for her. Tae-sik finds Somi crying in an alley. She asks for her MP3 player back and offers her lucky card in exchange. Then, through tears, she says what she's really feeling. She understands he was embarrassed by her, but it broke her heart that he pretended not to know her when she needed him. She says he treated her like everyone else. Even so, she can't bring herself to hate him. Because if she did, she'd have no one left that she likes. When Somi gets home, she walks into a nightmare. Her mother is bound and tortured by Jong Seok, Man Seok's younger brother. Man Seok's cold-blooded enforcer, Ramrowan, appears behind her and holds her in place. As the torture escalates, he covers her eyes. Unable to withstand the torture any longer, Hyo-jong breaks anyway and reveals where she hid the stash. Hyo-jong had hidden the stash inside the camera bag she pawned to Tae-sik. Jong-seok sends Do-chi and Bear to retrieve it. They break into Tae-sik's apartment. Do-chi levels a knife at him, but before he can register what's happening, Tae-sik disarms him. Bear moves in to attack, and in a flash, he's on the floor, out cold. Then Ramrowan appears and hands Tae-sik a burner phone. Jong-seok is on the line. He tells Tae-sik to hand over the camera bag. Tae-sik tells him he can have it, but at full price plus 4 days interest. Jong-seok laughs, then makes Somi and her mother scream into the phone. That's all it takes. Tae-sik quickly hands the bag to Ramrowan. Inside, they find the stash. Before leaving, Ramrowan puts a bullet in Bear, who's trying to get up and leaves the burner phone on the table. Tae-sik, realizing they won't release the girls, chases their vehicle into the street. But he doesn't catch them. The next day, Jong-seok calls Tae-sik and asks him to deliver a package for them in exchange for the release of Somi and Hyo-jong. Tae-sik agrees as long as they are not harmed. A car is arranged for him. Following Jong-seok's directions, Tae-sik retrieves the package. At the drop location, he opens the package and finds a toy car. He disassembles it and discovers a stash hidden inside. The package is meant for Myung-gyu. Inside, Myung-gyu receives him warmly. Tae-sik sets down the package and asks for the captives to be released. Myung-gyu has no idea what he's talking about. Then, he receives a call from Man Seok, and it becomes clear. Man Seok has set him up by sending the drugs and tipping off the police out of revenge. Moments later, the police surround the building. Convinced Tae-sik is an accomplice, Myung-gyu orders his men to beat him. They batter him, then hurl him out the window. He lands on a safety net below. When he spots Myung-gyu escaping, he slashes through the net, drops down, and gives chase. Myung-gyu reaches his car and speeds off. Tae-sik enters his own car and follows. Tae-sik rams him, bringing both cars to a violent stop. Myung-gyu crawls out of the wreckage and slips away. When Tae-sik gets out, he sees Hyo-jong's body in the trunk of his car and stops cold. Her organs have been harvested, the body crudely stitched back together. The police close in and arrest him on the spot, assuming he is the killer. A background check on Tae-sik turns up almost nothing, just a pawnshop owner in a rundown neighborhood. During a search of his apartment, they find Bear's body. Detective Kim interrogates Tae-sik, but he refuses to answer questions. After much pressure, he gives them one statement. He's not involved in any drug deal. He made a delivery to Myung-gyu in exchange for Somi and Hyo-jong's release. However, Kim doesn't buy a word of it. Later, food is brought to Tae-sik. He mentions to the officer that he's left-handed. When the officer leans in to switch the cuffs, Tae-sik drops him in a single move, takes out the others in the room, and walks out. Meanwhile, Man Seok's men hand Somi off to an elderly woman who manages a network of children used as drug couriers. The woman coaxes her inside, telling her that her mother is there. What Somi finds instead are hollow-eyed, sickly children. She breaks down. Back at the station, Tae-sik's escape sets off alarm bells. A normal pawnshop owner can't break out of a secured facility so cleanly. They dig deeper and discover his file is locked under military classification, which is highly unusual for a civilian. The police escalate the case and request access to the classified records through higher authorities. They learn that Tae-sik is a former covert operative for South Korean Army intelligence, specializing in foreign military operations. He retired after a hitman killed his pregnant wife. The incident hollowed him out, turning him to a shadow of his former self. Meanwhile, Ram-rowan tracks down Myung-gyu and kills him, clearing the way for Man-seok and Jong-seok to take over his operations. Using the burner phone Jong-seok had called him on, Tae-sik traces it to a phone shop. He demands the buyer's identity. The seller refuses at first, but quickly gives in after Tae-sik roughs him up. He hands over a business card linked to the buyer and reveals that the buyer deals in human organs. The address leads Tae-sik to a nightclub where Jong-seok is partying. Tae-sik locates Do-chi, whose name is tied to the business card. He confronts him and beats like he's owed it for years. He demands to know where Somi is, but Do-chi refuses to cooperate and taunts him instead. Suddenly, Ram-rowan bursts in, opening fire. Tae-sik yanks Do-chi in front of him, and Do-chi is killed instantly. Tae-sik retreats to a toilet cubicle while Ram-rowan fires blind. When the shooting stops, Tae-sik comes up behind him, lands a strike, then slips out onto the dance floor. The two face each other across the room, and then Man-seok and Jong-seok arrive. Seconds later, so does the police, having tracked Tae-sik to the club. Man-seok tosses him a fresh burner phone before slipping out. Tae-sik follows, but they leave in a vehicle before he can reach them. Tae-sik hijacks a car, barely escaping the police. Moments later, Man-seok calls and threatens that Somi's eyes will soon be up for sale. In an ice-cold voice, Tae-sik promises him he will regret making her a target. Tae-sik makes his way to a former partner's place to remove a bullet lodged in his stomach. As it's being removed, the pain pulls him under. He recalls how his pregnant wife died. The truck ramming their car with his wife inside. The assassin climbing out to take him out too. Agents arriving just in time to neutralize the threat, but not in time to save her. When Tae-sik regains consciousness, he requests a gun. Tae-sik cuts his hair to change his appearance. Detective Kim informs Tae-sik that Somi is still alive. She was spotted on CCTV withdrawing money from an ATM. In exchange, Kim wants the truth. Tae-sik gives it to him plainly: what really happened, how he got pulled in, and how Hyo-jung's body ended up in the trunk of that car. Tae-sik returns to the location where he picked up the drug package and begins working the trail. Elsewhere, Somi is being kept in a room, guarded by Ram-rowan. He slides a piece of cake toward her, trying, in his way, to ease her fear. She notices a wound on his forehead and, without a word, bandages it. Tae-sik trails some children being used as drug mules. Then he sees Somi, moving through the street with pairs of shoes stuffed with ATM cards. He starts to follow. He also spots a boy slipping into a suspicious van nearby. Just then, he runs into a group of policemen who mistake him for a suspect. He fights them off and leaps off a building. He hijacks a taxi and tracks the van to an abandoned building. Inside, it's a drug manufacturing plant. Children are everywhere, forced to work. One collapses from exhaustion as Tae-sik watches. He moves through the building with grim efficiency, taking men down before they know he's there. He finds Jong-seok, who tries to escape, but Tae-sik shoots him in the leg and ties him to a chair. He calls Man-seok and asks for Somi's location. Man-seok refuses to cooperate even as Jong-seok screams in the background. Tae-sik evacuates the children, then blows up the building with Jong-seok inside. On Man-seok's orders, Ram-rowan delivers Somi to a doctor. The man tells her coldly that he's going to remove her eyes, the same way her mother's were taken. Somi, who still believes her mother is still alive, turns to Ram-rowan through tears, asking if it's true. The doctor keeps at it, taunting her. Even Ram-rowan looks unsettled. Tae-sik finally finds the building where Somi is being held. Inside, he finds Manseok and his men waiting confidently. Manseok demands for his brother, but Tae-sik ignores him and asks for Somi instead. Manseok rolls a jar containing 2 eyeballs toward him. He dares Tae-sik to do his worst. Tae-sik stares at the jar. Enraged, his hand finds his gun before anyone can react. He fires brutally until the magazine runs dry. He engages the remaining men in close combat, disarming them and using their own blades against them, cutting through each one and breaking bones as he goes. Ram-Rowan fires from a distance, but Tae-sik uses the bodies of the men as a shield. Stunned by the carnage, Ram-Rowan lowers his gun and one by one, the remaining men go down. When Tae-sik moves to pick up the jar, a single shot rings out and shatters it. He turns slowly to see Ram-Rowan standing across the room. Tae-sik stares at him like a starving beast, and the two engage in a brutal and close battle. Tae-sik ultimately kills Ram-Rowan. Tae-sik then goes after Manseok, who's making an escape. He blows out his tires and brings his car to a stop. He fires at him, but the car is bulletproof. Manseok watches from behind the windshield, smugly confident in the bulletproof glass between them. Tae-sik moves closer, presses the barrel flush against the windshield, and fires repeatedly until he breaks through. He lands a final shot and kills Manseok. With everything over, Tae-sik loses the will to keep living. He raises his gun to his head. Before he can pull the trigger, Somi calls out to him. She runs to him and embraces him tightly, crying as she realizes he came to rescue her. Ram-Rowan had spared Somi because of her affection towards him. The eyes in the container belonged to the doctor. Ram-Rowan killed him. Later, Tae-sik is arrested by the police. During the drive to the station, he asks the officers to stop at the convenience store near his home. He buys a school bag and supplies and gives them to Somi. He apologizes for pretending not to know her. He says he actually wants to know her too much. Somi does not understand what he means. The confusion on her face makes him laugh. She goes wide-eyed seeing him laugh for the first time. Tae-sik tells her she will have to continue on her own as the police take him away. Before leaving, he asks for a hug. They embrace tightly as he breaks down in tears. And that's how a broken man with nothing left to lose took down an entire criminal empire to save the one person who never gave up on him. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and leave a like to support the channel. It helps us bring you more incredible action, thriller, and crime movie recaps every week. And let us know in the comments. If you were in Tae-sik's position, how far would you go to save someone you cared about? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next movie recap.